Yellow and Red makes by Digits 27, chapter 48. Alright, Gozu, you stay out here with Yukimaru and look after him. Naruto turned to where Fu was eagerly looking towards the boulders marking the entrance. You as well, Fu. The girl turned to him questioningly and a little hurt. Thinking he doubted her abilities, he just shook his head with a warm smile as he enveloped her smaller body in a deep hug. This isn't like before, Fu. Orochimaru might be in there, and if anything happens to you, I couldn't live with myself. He broke away and caught the shy nod she gave him. Encouraged by that, he motioned for Tayu and Gurren to follow him, while the rest of them backed away. Alright, Gurren, you've been here before. How do we get in? Gurren just moved him to the side before approaching the rock formation confidently. Her hands blurred through as a set of hand seals faster than Naruto could keep track of before slamming them down on the ground. The largest of the boulders swung away with an ear-wrenching grinding sound to reveal a candlelit staircase. Naruto threw one last glancing smile towards Fu before he descended the stairs with Gurren and Tayu in tow. The boulders so swinging back down to hide them. As soon as they entered the dank, cold staircase, Naruto felt a sense of foreboding that permeated the air like a fog, clouding his senses and sending shivers up his spine. Tayu saw this and put a hand on his shoulder before sending a pulse of her chakra through his system. Strong genjutsu meant to make you feel insecure and frightened, probably compensation for a lack of guards or something. The redhead looked around with a small smirk, her eyes showing moderate appreciation for the powerful genjutsu. While not life-threatening in itself, it might just give the attacker not affected an advantage strong enough to get the upper hand. She could appreciate the subtlety with which it was applied, as well probably spread throughout the entire base. Grun led them further down the eerily similar corridors, all bearing the same crisscrossed pattern of wood as door after identical door passed them by on both sides. If Naruto or Tayu were here without Gurren, they would have clearly gotten lost in the endless array of maze-like tunnels that stretched on seemingly endlessly. Luckily, the blue-haired Konoichi seemed to know where she was going, leading them confidently further into the base. Sasuke should be in this room at the center of the complex. I have no idea which, but at least it narrows it down. Naruto nodded, setting his senses all around them, on the lookout for any guards that might be patrolling. It almost unnerved him how silent the entire complex was. He hadn't heard a footstep or even trickle of water since they entered. It was almost too quiet for a place that Orochimaru himself frequented. Where are all the guards? Gurren looked around, shushing Tayu with a finger to her lips, but Naruto had to agree with her. Shouldn't there be a sound shinobi patrolling or something? Naruto whispered it, but the sound of his voice still echoed throughout the corridors, thanks to the otherwise silent background. No, apparently Orochimaru wants to keep his precious Uchi away from the rest of the Sound Ninja. This entire complex is entirely for him to train in. Naruto detected the hint of spite in Gurren's hushed voice. He could tell she wasn't particularly fond of Sasuke. They continued to rush through the complex, their feet making no sound on the wood panel floor. Naruto had long ago applied the same silencing seals he put on his Fujino Iki kunai to his sandals. It eliminated him to having to try and be sneaky, also letting him run as fast as he liked without making a sound. Tayu had trained herself to be silent, using her above average hearing to making sure she never created a sound louder than anything in the surroundings. Gurren created a layer of every fine crystals across the soles of her sandals, which muffled any noise she made. In essence, the three made no sound whatsoever as they rushed through the complex like ghosts. Once again, the Gurren raised her hand, and they all came to a stop in another identical corridor. Nothing discerning it from the hundreds of others they ran through. Alright, we're in the inner compound. Tayu just looked around confused. How can you tell? It all looks the same. Gurin just pointed to one of the many kind of brackets on the walls, and Naruto immediately noticed that it was set in a different metal to the ones they had passed before. He never would have noticed that if Gurin had pointed it out. Okay, now what? Tadeusz stared back at Naruto incredulously again. Seriously, don't you ever plan anything? Naruto just shrugged with a sincere grin. My life's not the type you can plan. Taiyo was about to retort, but she had to admit that he sort of had a point. Her shoulders sagged as she returned to just barely looking around. Not that there was anything to see of interest. I think we should split up. I'm not familiar enough with this part of the complex to look into Uchiha, and I assume neither of you are censored in. When she saw Taiyo and Naruto shake their heads, she nodded and made a move to run off into the adjoining quarters. Taiyo quickly caught her hand, smirking herself. Actually, I have a better idea. Taiyo moved back a bit into the center of the corridor before moving through a few hand seals and slamming her hand to the ground. Some ninjutsu. In a puff of smoke, she was surrounded by a flock of falcons who all seemed confused as to why their summoner had brought them to this dank hallway. Alright guys, I need you to spread out and look for Sasuke Uchiha. Dark blue hair, looks like a emo with a dug ass on his head. You can't miss him. When you find him, come back here and tell me. The falcons all looked almost themselves in what looked like an unsure manner before flying off down all the corridors. So, I could have just done that with shadow clones. Taiyo raised an eyebrow in his direction, leaning against the wall of the corridor. Well, you could have mentioned that before I summoned them. Naruto just shrugged in his lazy way and joined Taiyo by the wall. Both of them sliding down until they were in a seated position with Taiyo resting her head on Naruto's shoulder. They both waited for the Falcons to return while watching a candle flickering in its holder. Gurin just stood awkwardly to the side, unsure of what to do in this situation. Taiyo noticed her discomfort and smirked, reaching up her hands towards the blue net. Aw, is somebody feeling left out? Gurin just scowled at her in irritation, which left Taiyo to chuckle into Naruto's shoulder. Naruto just smiled apologetically in Gurin's direction before the former sound and turned to keep watch of the corridor they came from. Finally, they all heard the flap of wings. Naruto before the girls and watched as a single eagle turned the corner before getting promptly zapped into oblivion by a bolt of lightning. Taiyo and Naruto scrambled to their feet just as a slightly irritated Uchiha rounded the corner, giving one the chance to look him over. Naruto couldn't see all that much change in him in the 2 years that had passed. His hair now hung in bangs down his face, which had gotten more angular. He had also changed his clothing, although whether or not it was for the better was questionable. He now wore a light gray shirt, loosely tied with a dark purple rose, which matched the color of the pants his shirt was tucked into. Are you the ones who sent those falcons to find me? Naruto stared him down, cocking his head as he took in the sword on the teen's back. Hey, duck butt, remember me? Naruto looked at Taiyo with an expression which clearly said, "Is now really the time for that?" Taiyo just shrugged as a response before they all turned their attention to Sasuke again. No. Taiyo actually seemed a little offended before the Uchiha turned his attention to the other two intruders. You are one of Orochimaru's lackeys. What are you doing with these intruders? Gurin didn't reply, instead crossing her arms over her chest as a thin layer of crystal began to form across her body. Unseen to everyone present, Sasuke narrowed his eyes. He didn't like being ignored, but it was the last intruder who intrigued him. You're one of the ones who captured me. His eyes narrowed as the Sharingan whirled into life. Where's the one who can manipulate sand? Naruto smiled cockily, wondering where this guy got off making demands. Sorry, Gar was too busy to come and kick your ass for a third time. I'm here in his stead. Now, if you wouldn't mind knocking yourself unconscious so I can get a look at the hiki mark on your neck, that would just be great. He smiled pleasantly at the end, earning him a few snickers from Taiyo while Sasuke remained unimpressed. Fine, you will be good test for my new skills. Naruto gave him another fake smile as somewhere near Tenchi Bridge, a pale kid with no fashion sense sneezed loudly, startling his fellow shinobi. Are you sure you don't want to just knock yourself unconscious? It would be a whole lot less painful. So Sasuke sneered at his three-tomo Sharingan already spinning in anticipation. For you, maybe. Naruto just nodded with a bemused expression as if Sasuke was just pointing out the obvious. Well, yeah, that too, I guess. Sasuke was starting to tremble with his annoyance and anticipation. Big talk from a man that hides behind women. A smirk found its way onto Sasuke's face as Taiyo dropped right off of hers. She had been about to step forward and fight, but in a moment of calm, she stepped back, taking Gurren with him. Kick his fucking ass, shithead. Naruto looked at her questioningly. She wasn't usually the type to step back from a fight, but he wasn't going to disappoint her now. Sorry, I was just going to make this quick, but you insulted Taiyo. She's not going to be happy until I break at least 5 of your bones. He took a look at Taiyo, who just frowned at him. Sorry, 6. Taiyo smiled happily, continued to watch her boyfriend do all the work. Enough of this. Sasuke disappeared from where he had been standing in a burst of speed that defied the human eye to follow. Unfortunately, Naruto could see it all too well, moving out of the way at the last minute as Sasuke's electricity charged fist passed right by his face. At the last moment, he stuck out a leg, tripping Sasuke and sending him tumbling forwards and cracking his head against the floor. Olay! Even Gurren had to snicker at that as Sasuke picked himself up. Naruto could have used that moment to subdue the last Uchiha, but he had promised to draw this out. Sasuke stood and glared at him angrily, a little growl emanating from his throat. How did you move that fast? My Sharingan couldn't predict it. Naruto smiled wholeheartedly. There's a reason I'm called the most unpredictable ninja in one country. Sasuke continued to growl as he sprinted at Naruto again, and this time the blonde didn't bother to dodge out of the way. He countered the first punch, then the second, blocked a kick with his leg before ducking under a third lightning-infused fist. Every time he only brought his arm or leg up at the last possible moment, not giving Sasuke Sharingan enough time to read his movements. Sasuke grew angry as his punches continued to be blocked or dodged, seemingly without Naruto having any trouble at all. Finally, Naruto saw an opportunity when Sasuke overextended his arm, which Naruto promptly caught. He spun around using his arm as a lever to send his elbow into Sasuke's ribs. Naruto let go and backed up when he heard a satisfactory crack emanate from Sasuke's torso. That's one. Sasuke grit his teeth through the pain, refusing to cry out as he straightened himself up and set it back into a combat stance. Really? You're going to try that again? I thought that you were supposed to be intelligent. Sasuke said nothing. Instead, he tried to speak through his fist as he unleashed a devastating series of high-speed blows on Naruto. At least they would have been devastating if any of them had actually reached their target. Naruto was nothing but a blur as he nimbly moved his body out of the way of Sasuke's blows. He added insult to injury by putting his arms behind his back, making no attempt to try and block the blows. Contented to bend his body in all the ways Yujiro had taught him because his hands were behind his back. Sasuke couldn't react fast enough when Naruto did finally retaliate, spinning on the spot to launch a powerful backhand at Sasuke's ribs again. This time, the Uchiha was prepared for such a maneuver through the dull and blocked. Unfortunately for him, Naruto wasn't the type to blindly repeat a move just because it worked. As soon as Sasuke made a move to block, Naruto disappeared from view, only appearing a moment later behind the Uchiha in order to deliver a devastating blow to his side. Again, Naruto heard a crack as another rib was fractured by the force of his blow. 2. Sasuke ignored the injury as he spun around, attempted to hit the agile blonde while he thought he was weakened to no avail. Naruto followed the movement, spinning at the same time Sasuke did, so they were back to back, and Naruto was right behind Sasuke. Tsuchiya was confused when he turned only to see thin air before Naruto used him like a springboard and launched himself away, leaving Sasuke to tumble to the ground. Naruto's foot leaving yet another rib broken. 3. And Sasuke finally wised up as he stood to his feet and clutching his midsection in pain as he reappraised his opponent. You're fast. Sasuke grumbled it out in begrudged respect for the flighty blonde, actually admitting that his opponent had the upper hand in one aspect. I try. Now would you hold still? We still have 3 more bones to go. The small iota of respect Naruto had gained in Sasuke's eyes immediately shattered as the Uchiha flashed through a set of hand signs. Fire style, grand fireball jutsu. The Uchiha took a deep breath before exhaling in chakra-infused breath over the tiger seal he formed with his hand seals, which acted as the spark needed to ignite the attack. Naruto spun through his own seals and breathed in before the fire could reach him. Wind style, grand great breakthrough. Naruto, normally only an idiotic shinobi, would ever try to counter a fire jutsu with a wind jutsu, seeing as the arrow only empowered the fire, feeding it to make it larger and stronger. Then again, though shinobi didn't have the incredible affinity to wind that Naruto did, the gust of wind he exhaled from his lungs not only empowered Sasuke's fireball, it overpowered it, turning the raging ball of flames and sending it right back at its creator. Sasuke could only widen his eyes in surprise as the flames were halted before changing course to head straight at him. He could only turn and run until he found a quarter that branched off to the side. He immediately dived in just in time as he felt the fireball fly by and singeing his feet slightly before it struck the intersection. The explosion, the oxygen-fed fireball created was enough to shroud the area in a thick layer of dust and earth. Naruto waited a few moments to see if Sasuke had survived. He really hoped he had. Otherwise, he was back to square one on the whole curse mark problem. Finally, the dust cleared enough that Naruto could see thin rays of sunlight stream through, illuminating the corridor as it revealed the gaping hole in the compound that now led outside. Sasuke finally stumbled into view, wincing each time his feet made contact with the ground as his burning skin was rubbing against the whole soles of his sandals. Naruto watched him impassively, trying to ascertain if the Uchiha had broken any bones from the attack. He didn't want his count to be off. Seriously, what kind of asshole uses a fireball technique in the corridor? That's just asking for trouble. Sasuke just sneered at him, trying to stand straighter despite all his various injuries. You're too interested in my curse mark. Fine, I'll let you see it as much as you want. Naruto watched with a cocked head as black flames like markings crept along Sasuke's skin until he was completely covered in them. The black markings glowed red for a second before they emerged, darkening the Uchiha skin into a molted gray as his hair grew longer, changing to a light purple color. A matching cross appeared above the bridge of his nose as his sclera turned black, retaining the red of his Sharingan. Finally appeared rather creepy hand-like wings sprouting from his back. So that's what your curse mark does. It turns you into a woman. Interesting, but I fail to see the point of that. Sasuke sneered with his now purple tinted lips, using a powerful downward sweep of his wings to lift himself into the air. Make all the jokes you want. You die here now. Naruto waved a dismissive hand at the flying Uchiha as he turned back around to Tayuya. He healed. Do I have to start the count again? The Tayuya just nodded exasperately while Naruto lurched forward in irritation before turning to Sasuke again. Ugh! You just made it harder. He sprinted at Sasuke so fast that it appeared he was there 1 second, then right below him in the next. With one powerful leap, Naruto sprang up and, in a similar move to the one he used on Sasuke, used his momentum to swing up and strike Sasuke in the face with the heel of his feet. He swung back off, landing outside of the compound in a gray plane. Checking in the green plane, checking back over his shoulder to see an irritated Sasuke clutching his face. Okay. One again. Sasuke snarled again, his body crackling with lightning as his uncontrolled irritation got the better of him. He withdrew his sword, one eerily similar to that of Orochimaru's Kusanagi, which told Naruto he didn't want to be on the receiving end of it. So when Sasuke, with a powerful sweep of his wings, sped at Naruto from the air, he dodged backwards, backflipping until he was out of range of the dangerous sword. As he moved away, he made sure to flick his arm out, unsealing a good number of his kunai as he did so, not bothering to grab them before spreading out over the field. Sasuke looked around him, trying to find the purpose of such technique, considering none of the kunai even came close to touching him. Naruto grinned as he realized Sasuke was completely unaware of the danger he was in. Instead, he was focusing on Naruto. I'm guessing Orochimaru didn't tell you anything about my abilities then. And Sasuke sneered but said nothing, all the answer Naruto needed. And Sasuke tried to repeat his move, speeding at Naruto with his sword raised. The blonde just looked bored, not even moving into a defensive stance as the gray-skinned Uchiha approached rapidly. In the instant before Sasuke's blade would have pierced his unprotected neck, Naruto vanished. Sasuke didn't even see a muscle twitched. He just disappeared. Reacted on the sixth sense all shinobi trainer to perfect. Sasuke blocked a spinning kick from behind with his swing, turning only to see the same thing. Again, he swiveled in an instant, using his leg to intercept another blow, only for Naruto to vanish as soon as Sasuke saw him. Growing impatient, Sasuke began to channel chakra in his body, blocking attacks that came out of nowhere and disappeared in a similar manner. Finally, when he felt that he had built it up enough, he released it all in one go. Chidori's current. The next time Naruto appeared, he was suddenly shocked as numbing electricity arced through his body, leaving him unable to move as his muscles contracted uncontrollably. Sasuke turned a smirk on his face as he saw the immobile Naruto stuck in position. He raised his sword almost lazily before bringing it down to cleave Naruto's head from his shoulder, only for Naruto to disappear again, reappear near the kunai farthest from Sasuke's position. How did you do that? You shouldn't even be able to move. Naruto smirked weakly, finding it difficult to control the muscles in his face right now. Got to have secrets, you know. Already he was leeching the foreign lightning chakra from his system as Kyuubi repaired the damage that it had done to his muscles, allowing him to stand up again, albeit a little shakenly. He stretched out his muscles as Sasuke approached him again, only for Naruto to disappear as soon as he was close. It was like the Uchiha never learned him. Stop that! Sasuke was visibly angry now, while Naruto just smirked, feeling his body finally come back under his control. Okay, if you insist. Naruto clutched his wrist and forced chakra into his palm, rotated and concentrated down, while all the while feeding it until it grew to the size of his body. Sasuke stared at the enormous mass of violent chakra contained in Naruto's hand until the blonde reared back his hand like he was throwing a baseball. Naturally, Sasuke dodged to the side as the glowing blue sphere sailed past him. What he wasn't expecting was the thin blue thread that connected to it to Naruto's hand. Naruto tugged the Rasengan back like a yo-yo, sighing in relief as it firmly smacked Sasuke in the back, shredding into his wings as the Uchiha cried out in pain. Still not finished, Naruto brought the Rasengan mace back up with a flick of his wrist before slamming it back down into Sasuke's prone body. Like a sledgehammer, there was a flash of light as the energies were released before Naruto had to wait for the various dust and smoke to clear. He caught Yuya and Gurren emerging from the hole they made in the complex and waved over to them cheerily. Yuya waved back while Gurren just looked between the blonde and the setting cloud of dust, as well as the ground littered with kunai. I'm pretty sure that counts for at least 4. He idly pointed in the direction of the smoke cloud while Yuya grinned. Naruto was a little distracted by the new arrivals that he almost didn't catch. The blur that shot out of the cloud of smoke and dust, as it was, he saw it, but wasn't quite fast enough to intercept it before Sasuke managed to firmly clasp his hand around Yuya's neck. Not unconsciously started to send lightning chakra to his muscles and wind chakra to his tenketsu, even as he sprinted towards the scene. And time slowed down to him, literally, as his reflexes were temporarily tripled and his speed was markedly increased. He watched as Sasuke brought his sword around, ready to pierce Yuya's heart before she could even cry out. Naruto's footsteps began to create small craters in his wake as he increased the power of his body, moving at speeds unimaginable at most. He arrived just in time to divert Sasuke's sword as it was an inch from Yuya's chest, slamming into the Uchiha's arm with enough force to shatter the bone instead. Despite the curse mark, he didn't even stop as he grabbed the same arm and spun with it, launching a rapid kick at Sasuke's exposed back before pivoting in the opposite direction to again slam the same foot into the Uchiha's unprotected front. From the outside, it looked like the Uchiha was standing perfectly still, when in actuality Naruto was repeatedly kicking him back and forth so quickly that his net displacement was negligible. It was over in a second. Naruto had managed to break most of Sasuke's ribs to 2 places in his legs and shattered one arm completely. He let the broken Sharingan wielder fall to the floor in a crumbled heap, watching as the curse mark receded receded back into his neck. Naruto didn't even realize that his canines had elongated and his eyes had flipped into red and black slits. He snarled down at Sasuke with an audible growl that promised even more pain, even though it said Uchiha was unconscious. Don't you ever try and hurt Tayuya! He gave the limp boy another powerful kick for good measure before he sighed and before he reined in his emotions. His fair appearance receded, leaving behind a weary and angry Naruto, who looked around to make sure Tayuya was okay. What he saw was a face full of amazement from Tayuya and another in equal disbelief from Gurren. What? Tayuya and Gurren sat nervously outside of the door, which Naruto had practically dragged Sasuke unconscious body into. Apparently, he didn't stay that way long. If the cries of pain emerged from behind the door were anything to go on, they stopped abruptly, which Tayuya took to mean Naruto had put up privacy seals, making her shudder as she subconsciously rubbed her curse marker. She was thankful that Naruto had Sasuke to do his test on. She knew her blonde boyfriend would never intentionally hurt her, but she didn't like the sounds that came from that room. Finally, he emerged, wiping his hands out of something that Tayuya would have preferred not to know. Even if Uchiha had deserved it, he looked up at them like he was surprised to see them sitting just outside the room, before glancing back inside and smiling sheepishly. Tayuya stared at him for a moment, wondering how he could act so casual after that, but decided to disregard that train of thought. It was Naruto. What did you do to him in there? Gurren was also curious and turned her head to look up at Naruto. It's probably best if you don't know. Tayuya was still curious, but from the tone of Naruto's voice, she believed him and didn't ask anything else. Naruto sighed as he closed the door behind him, not particularly caring what Sasuke did at this point. He understood enough about the curse marker now that he had created a seal that completely suppressed it, and then made that seal a bitch to crack it just to piss off Orochimaru. You know, for a pedophilic asshole, Orochimaru was a genius. That curse mark is one of the most complicated pieces of ninjutsu I've seen, second only to mine. Foos and beast seals. Tayuya hung her head in sadness. She had thought as much considering the time Naruto was in there, and she had seen the time it took him to immediately analyze and break down the steel of that pseudo-ambush shinobi who they had encountered. It only took him seconds. He was in that room for over half an hour. That could only spell trouble for her. It's really complex, but basically it's got four main aspects. Some kind of injector for this weird enzyme, which I think triggers the mutation at the level 2, a chakra converter that I'm still figuring out, slight mind altering properties, mostly to boost aggression and sadistic tendencies, and he trailed off, realizing he had just allowed himself to ramble, while Tayuya looked up at him expectantly. And what? Naruto sighed while looking down at the floor. Come on, shithead, what's the last part of the seal? Naruto looked up at her, his face completely serious, more so than she had ever seen him before. The last part of the seal, it's a housing for a part of Orochimaru's soul. Silence reigned in the corner for a good 5 seconds before Tayuya's eyes widened in horror. What? Naruto screamed from the volume of her voice as she desperately clawed at her neck, only causing herself more pain in the process. Naruto walked over and gently took her wrist, stopping herself before she tried to tear the mark off of her shoulder entirely. He held her close, pulling her into a hug while he tried to cut across as much comfort as he could, and she clung to him and probably would have sobbed into his shirt if Gurren hadn't been there watching. Tayuya, I promised that I would get that thing off of you. It's taken longer than I thought, and it's going to take just a bit longer, but I swear that I will get rid of it. Then we'll make that bastard pay. Tayuya looked up at him, allowing him to wipe away her tears before they were allowed to form. Before nuzzling back into his shirt, Gurren just stood in the corridor awkwardly before backing out towards the hole Naruto had made earlier to get some fresh air. After 5 minutes of just hugging in the silent corridor, Tayuya finally let go of Naruto, who let her move back away from him until she was leaning against the wall of the corridor. His soul? How is something like that even possible? Naruto sighed again, idly playing with the spot of dirt that stained his shirt before looking up. I'm not entirely sure, but I have all my notes to go through still, and now that I have the difficult part out of the way, I can use your seal to finish it up. Tayuya nodded tiredly. The information all just a bit too much for her right now. Naruto saw this and moved over, pulling Tayuya onto his back. For once, she didn't complain, allowing him to carry her around like a child while she buried her face into his neck. Naruto managed a weak smile as he followed Gurren's lead towards the the improvised exit. When he got to Kumo, Toyo would take up all his attention. End of chapter 48.